Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Anthony Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. It's funny. It's weird to be back. We're having a little bit of a lag issue. Hopefully that'll, fix itself. A lot to do, a lot to talk about for today's show. It's weird to be back live, as I just said. But actually, I said something about a month ago when I came back to talk about the show. And I said some things. I thought this show would go to clip only. And then things changed. The NFL season picked up. So I'm actually very happy to announce, welcome back to the show, my dad, Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you back on the show.
Great to be here, Nate. I don't feel weird. I feel excited.
Yeah. NFL season's picking up very quickly. Preseason is underway. We're 2 weeks in. Got this last week left. Lot to talk about. We're going to get into it before the end. So during the preseason, this will be one episode a week, and that break week in between what would have been preseason 4 into week 1, that's when we will go to our normal Tuesday, Friday shows. So until then, for this week and the next week, it'll be just on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. But a lot to get into, and I want to start this show off with this first topic of today's show, which is talking about this situation with Trey Hendrickson, because this is utterly ridiculous. This has been going on for years at this point. Year after year after year. Trey Hendrickson, when he first signed with the Bengals, it was a very mid deal. It didn't really matter a lot because he wasn't elite at the time. He had back-to-back good seasons with the Saints, and then came in with the Bengals and got his first Pro Bowl, and has, I believe, gotten a Pro Bowl every single year since coming over to Cincinnati. And in that first season with Cincinnati, they made the Super Bowl. And since then, it's been, okay, we'll push you back one more year, and one more year, and one more year, and prove it deal, prove it deal, prove it deal, prove it deal. Well, how many times is Trey Hendrickson going to prove that he's an elite pass rusher in the NFL? Back-to-back seasons he just had of 17.5 sacks. And in NFL history, that has only happened twice. 2 other players have had back-to-back seasons of 17.5 sacks. Trey Hendrickson's one of them. And the other 2, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know these names, J.J. Watt and Reggie White. 2 of the best pass rushers in NFL history. Those are the only 2 other players besides Trey Hendrickson to have back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. In fact, in those back-to-back years, Trey Hendrickson obviously leads the league in sacks with 35. This is getting to a point of just pure ridiculousness. The Cincinnati Bengals, based on Sportico's new ranking of their most valuable franchises, obviously the Dallas Cowboys take the number 1 spot, and the Patriots actually drop a couple spots. So I believe number 3 or 4, they dip below $10 million. I think they're hovering around the $9.8 billion. The Bengals are dead last, and you can see why. Now, it's not that the Bengals are necessarily cheap, and people are going to point over to the fact that they just spent an exorbitant amount of money on T. Higgins and on Jamar Chase, but they should have, just like they should pay Trey Hendrickson, because his production on the field has been incredible. Let's bring up the numbers here. So last 2 seasons with Hendrickson on the field, they're 8th in success percentage defensively, 11th in completion percentage allowed, EPA per attempt net 0. They're 19th in the league, passer rating allowed 8th, and pressure rate 12th. So essentially top 12 in every, major statistical category that matters. But what about the last 2 seasons with Trey Hendrickson off the field? In those same categories, dead last in everything. He has been their defense the last 2 years. In fact, those 35 sacks in the last 2 years, the next closest Bengal has 8. 35 to 8. A 27 sack difference. That's what this defense is dealing with. And in fact, it gets so bad. The defense last year, we rip on it, and rightfully so, because it was that bad. Would you believe they played quarterbacks like Jacoby Brissett, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, DTR twice, Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder, Mason Rudolph, Cooper Rush, Will Levis, Andy Dalton, Russell Wilson twice, Bo Nix. Those are just some of the quarterbacks that they played last year. And during that 5-0 stretch to try to keep themselves alive for playoff contention, they versed Russell Wilson twice, Will Levis / Mason Rudolph, Cooper Rush, and DTR. They played no great quarterbacks during that long stretch. This season, it's a complete different story. Depending on how you rate these quarterbacks, because some people think certain quarterbacks are better than what I think, this year they played Joe Flacco, Trevor Lawrence, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Lamar Jackson twice, and Josh Allen. By the way, those are back-to-back-to-back games. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson again. That is brutal. Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. I would say that there's a pretty decent leap from last year to this year. In fact, they were the number 1 easiest quarterback schedule last year, and now I believe they're number 10 in the difficulty category. Their positional rankings are completely out of whack. They're 31st in offensive line, 20th in running back group, front seven's ranked 25th, and that's including Trey Hendrickson. That's just how bad the rest of the unit is. 28th in secondary. They're 25th in defensive spending for 2025. We're getting to a point now where it is Joe Burrow or bust. And if that's the situation, well, throw another year of Joe Burrow's career out the window because he's going to need to play Superman again. In fact, he's the only quarterback, the only one, out of 38 qualified quarterbacks since 2021 to be a top 10 in EPA success rating yards per attempt. The only quarterback top 10 in accuracy, he was number 2, and completion percentage, he was number 1. And this is with he's 35th out of 38 in play action rate, 30th out of 38 in motion. So it's really him saying hike and figuring it out. That's what this offense is set up to be. That's what this entire team is set up to be, a Joe Burrow or bust system. It's actually kind of like some of those Lamar Jackson years where he had to be the playmaker because the defense wasn't great, the wide receiver core wasn't great. In this case, it's just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase deal with it, and the defense will sort of pick up. And in fact, they tried to replace Trey Hendrickson with Shamar Stewart, but it took them 5 months to figure it out just because of a certain clause that they never added in any contract, and for some reason, they decided to do it now with Shamar Stewart. I think it's utterly ridiculous. And now we're in a situation where they finally came to a point where the years and the money is okay. Now it's all about guaranteed money because that first year is guaranteed. Trey Hendrickson wants that second year guaranteed. Give it to him, please. They have $30 million in cap space. They could afford to sign Trey Hendrickson for a couple years. He turns 31, and I believe in December. So they're going to need to figure it out because if I'm Trey Hendrickson, as he said previously, he is willing to stick it out, hold out until he gets paid, and rightfully so, because he has been technically the best pressure edge rusher in the NFL. Number 1 in sacks the last 2 years. I think right now he's better than Nick Bosa. I think you could argue he's better than Myles Garrett. Just because the team in totality is so bad, Joe Burrow had no real MVP contention. You make that team a 10, 11 win team and look at Joe Burrow's numbers, he's going to be much higher in the MVP conversation than he was last year. You take a look at Trey Hendrickson, and all of a sudden, you may maybe put him in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. But it's just the fact you win 9 games. 9 games with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson. Logan Wilson's not that bad either. This defense is abysmal. This defense is going to continuously be abysmal if they don't figure it out. Myles Murphy, their 2023 draft pick, hasn't really shown up yet. So the Bengals desperately have to figure this out. And we're going to talk about it later. What teams are under the most pressure in the NFL? There's a couple here, and we talked about this not too long ago. And actually, we're going to come back to it because a number of these teams we discussed when we did this conversation a few months ago. And I think one of them, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show, it's the next topic. I'm not going to go to it quite yet, but Anthony Richardson, we said he was under a lot of pressure. Well, he got benched. He's now QB2 behind Danny Dimes, which I've been on basically from the beginning, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. The Bengals are in trouble. They're in a very difficult division with Aaron Rodgers now at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns, they're a complete mess. They now are starting Joe Flacco. They have a quarterback situation that now they're thinking about keeping all 4 quarterbacks. What? That's the Cleveland Browns. I already bet them for the season under. I think their over-under is 4.5. Bet the under because their quarterback situation is a complete mess. It's the same argument I had last year with the Las Vegas Raiders. If you have multiple quarterbacks, you have 0. And right now there's a competition between who's QB2. Joe Flacco's quarterback 1. He did fine. He kept the Browns alive when they were dealing with their quarterback debacle when Deshaun Watson was dealing with his situation. And he led them to the playoffs, averaging like 300 yards a game. Did lose to C.J. Stroud in that playoff game. But still, this defense the Browns have is very good. Very, very good. The Cincinnati Bengals, and especially early on, and I'm not going to say Joe Burrow's completely just not at fault for anything. Early on, he's terrible. Luckily, he starts off week 1 against the Browns, although you might be able to say he hasn't had a lot of success against the Cleveland Browns, shockingly. So we could be looking at a loss there because they are away at Cleveland. Then they're home against Jacksonville. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is worth $55 million. They have a brand new head coach. Brian Thomas Jr. looks incredible. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are in deep, deep trouble. Their over-under's 9.5 wins. I want to say over. I think they can get to double-digit wins. But this defense scares the hell out of me. Because in the preseason, they were giving up big-time runs. Now, they won the game, but against the Washington Commanders, they were giving up massive runs in that game. I'm a little bit concerned. And with that, let's go into our next topic, and I'll introduce you here once again. So I want to get into this one because we've talked about this extensively over the past couple years. Anthony Richardson, his era in the Indianapolis Colts, got picked 4th overall a few years ago, 3rd year in the system, and now all of a sudden, Tom Pelissero broke the news this morning about half an hour before Shane Steichen was supposed to face the media, and the report was that the Indianapolis Colts are moving forward with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback, putting Anthony Richardson at the QB2 spot. So let's go old times. Let's start with you here. Do you think now, with Daniel Jones taking over as QB1, that the Anthony Richardson era in Indianapolis is officially over?
I think it depends on how Daniel Jones plays. If Daniel Jones plays well and doesn't get hurt, he has a history of injuries. He has a history of throwing a lot of interceptions. His TD to interception ratio was 10 touchdowns to 13 interceptions in his last 16 games with the Giants. If he has stats like that, then there's a possibility that Richardson could wind up back on the field. I was a little surprised they made the call for Jones to be the starter before the preseason's over. Anthony Richardson got hurt in the first preseason game, only played 6 snaps. He dislocated his pinky. And Daniel Jones got 30 snaps in that game, so you saw a lot more of him and what he could do than you did of Richardson. But I think they kind of know what Richardson is, and they saw kind of the similar kind of, he got hurt in preseason. He doesn't lead the team the way they would like. Steichen says he likes the way that Daniel Jones operates the offense at the line of scrimmage, the checks that he does, the protection that he calls, the ball placement, the completion percentage. Those are the things he thinks Richardson is improved on. He said there was some improvement, but he needs more work in these areas. And he says that Richardson knows that. They had a meeting. He called both quarterbacks together, told them what he was going to do, and he said Richardson was fine with it. Jones has had 6 years, 70 games as a starter. So, you'd expect him to play like a veteran out there. And he showed that to Steichen in the preseason, and now he's been named the starter for the whole year. Now, will that turn out to be, if he has some stretches like he played with the Giants where he throws a lot of interceptions, he gets them down in the red zone, turns the ball over, it moves the ball team down the field, then makes a big mistake. He could wear out his welcome pretty quickly in Indianapolis, and they'll be watching that. Or he gets hurt. He has an injury history as well. He's on a 1-year, $14 million contract. Most of that is guaranteed. You asked me, is Richardson's is this the end of his era? Is it done? As I say, I think it depends mostly on the way Jones plays. Richardson has played 15 games in 2 seasons, so it's been a relatively small sample size. In year 1, he had that shoulder injury. It cost him 13 games. In year 2, he had 2 games with an oblique injury, and then he was benched for 4 games. And he came back and played a little bit better. But he's really failed at accepting the quarterback responsibilities. I mean, at one point he told the coaches, "I'm too tired. I can't go out there and play." A quarterback can't do that. You can't do that. You're the leader. He lacks, tangible signs of progress this year in the brief time that we saw him in the preseason, and that's why he lost the job. I think time is running out for him on his rookie contract is running out. Jones also has, as I said, an injury history. But you look at what the Colts have been over the past 4 years, and Ballard, the way he's managed from the front office. He had Carson Wentz, he had Matt Ryan, he had Richardson, he had Gardner Minshew, he had Flacco. Now he's got Daniel Jones. So I think that he'll be the fall guy if Daniel Jones is a failure and Richardson comes in and doesn't improve. So he'll be the fall guy. But if Daniel Jones plays well, I think that that'll be the end of Richardson's career with the Colts. Can he move on to something else? He looks a lot like a Trey Lance situation to me. They took him because of all his ability that he had. He'd only a 1-year starter in college. He had the upside, and maybe he still has a higher upside than Daniel Jones, but he hasn't shown it. And I think that his career with the Colts could be over. Would somebody else try to pick him up like the Cowboys picked up Trey Lance? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see.
I said this a while ago, and I'm not giving it up. Yeah, it ended a while ago. As soon as Chris Ballard said, we're going to bring in a guy, we're going to bring in somebody for a quarterback competition. Yeah, no, it's 1,000% over for Anthony Richardson. Because you lost to a guy that's been bounced around the league that was so bad in New York. He got bashed in New York, booed out of a stadium, then went over to Minnesota, didn't play a single game, really at all. And then wasn't really sought after in free agency, and you picked him up. But I did say, in Daniel Jones' defense, when Chris Ballard came out and said we're going to have a quarterback competition, I said it could be Russell Wilson, it could be Kirk Cousins, it could be Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, whoever it is. As soon as they bring in somebody, I think they'll beat out Anthony Richardson. I was dead on accurate. Because, and what's interesting, and you mentioned it with what Shane Steichen said, his whole thing, and Chris Ballard's quote was about consistency. That was his big thing. And after this preseason game, he was asked about how he felt about each quarterback operating the offense. He said, quote, I think it's everything, right? The operation, the communication in the huddle, the checks, guys getting on the same page, the consistency of all of that. Obviously, he's going to play a big factor in this. Anthony Richardson's consistency has been his lack of consistency because his entire career has been one thing and one thing only. His incredible arm strength. That's what he's known for. Sending the ball deep. I call it the Madden play. That's what he loves doing, the Madden plays where you chuck the ball deep and pray. In fact, in 2024, last year, he attempted, and these are the numbers, out of 26 qualified quarterbacks of 38 plus dropbacks when throwing deep, so 20 or more yards, these were Anthony Richardson's numbers and effectiveness. He was number one in attempts. He was 18.9. The highest guy was 2.7% lower in dropback percentage when throwing the ball deep. Completion percentage was 26%, dead last. Yards per attempt, 10.3, 23rd out of 26. Touchdown to interception ratio, it's a 0.5, 2 to 4, dead last. Passer rating, dead last. So what he tried to do the most of, or what led the league in, he was the worst at. It's as simple as that. Anthony Richardson tried to play Madden in real life. It's not working. And in fact, what's kind of crazy about it? The completion percentage of it, I'll add some context here. I don't know if people really care that much about it, although circumstance maybe. Completion percentage was 26.0. 26.1 was Patrick Mahomes, one guy above him. So Mahomes didn't have a great year throwing the ball deep, but a lot of people knew that. It was a very lucky year for the Kansas City Chiefs. But you talked about that play where he got hurt, where he dislocated his pinky. I want to talk about that because this is what a lot of people were noticing. His awareness of the pocket is zero because I think there's 5 or 6 guys that line up on the line of scrimmage, and number 90 just runs right at him. I think it's Ojabo. I believe that's his name. Runs right at him, doesn't even see him. Stares down his receiver, no pocket awareness, does nothing. Doesn't check the line, doesn't check the protection, is running back, and even a couple of those guys on the right side of the field were looking back immediately because they knew it was a blitz. They knew the defenders were coming in hot. Richardson didn't. He just completely stared at the receiver, tried to make the play, the wrong one. So, yeah, it's over. It's been over. This era is done. And they tried to, make amends by saying, well, this doesn't mean his future in Indy is completely gone. Yes, it is. It is. Because you're going to need to figure out his fifth-year option situation, which means you're going to not obviously take it because Mac Jones played better than Anthony Richardson in any one of these years, and they turned down his fifth-year option. There is no redeeming quality besides arm talent and arm strength, but if you can't harness it, if you can't control it, it's completely useless. So is Anthony Richardson more talented than Daniel Jones? Absolutely. He is more athletic. He has more arm strength, but he can't complete a pass. And in fact, we talk about those injuries. Lamar Jackson got hurt in the pocket when the pocket broke down. Would you believe that all of Anthony Richardson's injuries were using his greatest strength, his athletic ability? It wasn't pocket breaking down and an offensive lineman rolling an ankle or a defender coming at him, besides on that play where, where he dislocates a finger. That might be the only one. But during the regular season, his injuries have come when they've called design runs for him. And in fact, he's missed 17 games due to injury, a full season. And obviously, as everybody says, the best ability is availability. Richardson hasn't been. And Daniel Jones has missed a lot of time,
Daniel
too.
Jones
He's missed a lot of time, too.
You could say that about him, too.
But the difference is Daniel Jones is the more experienced quarterback. Chris Ballard, the GM, has been to one playoff game, I believe, since coming over to the Colts. Shane Steichen's in his third year with no success, nothing looking up, nothing looking great for them right now. They're in the worst division in football, and they can't win this division. Even when the Houston Texans' offensive line was nothing, C.J. Stroud was having a sophomore slump, and Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell all went down.
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure it out last year.
You would... Actually, I think Steichen is a pretty good coach.
Absolutely. He made Jalen Hurts an incredible quarterback, and that's why everybody thought when they drafted Anthony Richardson that Shane Steichen would figure him out.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate, but he's done a nice job with the rest of the team. I mean, they did win 8 games last year.
Correct.
And they were in contention for a playoff spot there right up until the end, even with Anthony Richardson out there. So if he can get decent quarterback play out of Daniel Jones, game manager, right? The year that the Giants went to the playoffs, that's really what Daniel Jones was. He threw like 15 touchdown passes.
15 touchdowns, correct.
Yeah, and
he had 5 picks, not many fumbles at all.
Right,
Anthony Richardson's fumbled the ball
a lot. He didn't turn the ball over. He managed the game reasonably well. He ran the ball well, when he needed to.
Correct.
That's what he needs to be for the Colts. If he can do that and he can stay healthy, he'll be the starter all year, and the Colts will have a shot at going to the playoffs, I think.
I think it's important. You picked out a really good thing. In 2022, Daniel Jones was not playing tremendous football. He was playing effective and efficient football. And the way that the Colts are built is similar to the way the Giants were built. Their defense is not too bad. They did a pretty good job last year. It wasn't great. Now, they lost 2 of their interior offensive linemen in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, center and guard. That's a pretty big loss there. But the Jonathan Taylor and the running back group is ranked 8th. Their defense is solid. Not great. Solid. About average. Yeah. That's fine.
But they're kind of a blueprint of what the Giants were in the year they went to the playoffs, right? They had...
Similar.
They had the running back...
So what, Saquon Barkley?
Saquon Barkley, right? And he carried a lot of the load. Jonathan Taylor's certainly capable of carrying the load, right?
Absolutely.
So if he has a good season, I think they could do okay. And I think naming him the starter, I was a little surprised they didn't wait until after the next preseason game. But naming him the starter and saying you're the starter for the whole year. That says a lot. I'd say Daniel Jones he took a risk. He left the Vikings. He probably could have signed back on there as the backup quarterback and been gotten decent money for doing that. He wanted to be a starter. He bet on himself that he could beat Richardson out in the competition, and he's done it. So congratulations to him. One question I have for you. Do the Colts play the Giants this year?
I have the schedule right now. No, they do not.
That's too bad.
What's interesting is that
I'd like to see that.
Open the line with Andy Richardson, because it's his offense, I guess people projected him to still be the starter. They were 1.5-point favorites against Miami in week 1. You check the point spread. When I checked it, the point spread moved 1 point more in favor of the Colts with Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback. They got a brutal schedule, I would say. There's a lot of games. I mean, just because it's the Colts, the point spreads are very in favor of their opponent. I think they're favored in 4 games this year. And those 4 games are the Jaguars, I believe, at home, the Titans at home, and the Raiders and the Dolphins.
They're only favored in 4 games. Huh?
That's it.
Well, we'll see. I think
here's the funny part.
I think they've made good decisions this year so far. I think bringing Jones in as the competition for Richardson was a good move. He's a veteran, 6-year veteran. Yeah. He's shown some spark. He's shown that if he can, have a good running game and keep his turnovers down, and he has the athleticism to be able to run the ball occasionally, and maybe have a shot at getting to the playoffs.
7.5 over/under win total. I'll take the under in the worst division in football just because it's the Colts. Here's the thing, I don't think it'll matter. I think the Colts with Anthony Richardson are not great. I think the Colts with Daniel Jones are just okay. I don't think this all of a sudden makes them a playoff contender. It should, because they're in the worst division in football. But I just think nothing good is going to come out of the AFC South, because nothing good has come out of the AFC South. I mean, yeah, there were some nice stories with the Houston Texans and whatnot, but no one saw them as a legitimate threat.
I think if it all bombs for them, then Ballard is gone. Whether Steichen is gone or not, I don't know. I think Steichen has done actually a decent job with the hand that's been dealt him. With Richardson turning out to be really not capable of being a leader. I think that's part of his problem there. If he'd shown some leadership, that might have helped him out some here, but he didn't, and I think that has a bearing on him being benched as well.
I agree. All right, coming up, Brian Daboll is not letting up the Russ is our starter situation. Russ came in to the Giants saying he expects to be the starter, and Brian Daboll has agreed with him every step of the way, even with Jackson Dart looking incredible, as well as what teams are under the most pressure. We'll discuss all of that right after this break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. It's good to have you back. It's good to be back on the Harvey Hour live every single Tuesday and soon to be every single Friday again. Let's get into our next topic, because this is interesting. So after their crushing win over the New York Jets, 31-12. I know it's preseason, but damn. The Giants putting up 30 points? Haven't seen that in a very long time. After that victory, Brian Daboll was instantly asked by the media whether or not they would consider, making Jackson Dart their starter. And Brian Daboll said, and I quote, "Russ is our starter, and we're going to keep developing Jackson." So he's not letting up on the Russ is our starter thing. That's what Russ came to believe, and probably what he was told, and what Brian Daboll said very early on once Russ got there, that he was probably going to be the starter, and Brian Daboll hasn't moved an inch since then. So I want to know, first of all, are they making a mistake? And how much pressure is on Russ for him to succeed in New York?
Well, let's just cut to the chase here. Russell Wilson is now a journeyman quarterback, right? He had his day in Seattle. He was good. He faded a little bit near the end. Then he went to the Broncos and was a disaster there. With the Steelers, he played well for a while and then kind of slid again and didn't play well in the playoffs. The Steelers had enough of him. They cut him loose. And now the Giants have picked him up. He was smart enough to say, in his introductory remarks, "I'm here to be the starter." Okay? And they're going to let him do that for sure, I think. And, his preseason so far, he looked pretty good out there with that. He throws a very good long ball. That's one thing that he has that is I give him credit. He doesn't seem to have lost much on that. He threw a nice long ball. I can't remember who it went to, but it wasn't one of the big name receivers. But then he threw another one, and the receiver ran the wrong way, and it got intercepted. I don't count that against him. So in the brief time he was out there, he looked pretty good, and I think that for him to be successful, and I question whether it's going to happen. You got to have a good running game. You got to have more consistency on the offensive side of the ball with the running game. And what did they do? What have they done this year to improve their running game? What have they done to elevate it? Because Russell Wilson needs a decent running game in order to be successful so he can throw more than just a dink and dunk pass. He needs to throw the ball down the field, and that's his talent. So if they have a good running game, that will open that up more so he'd be able to do it. Did they do anything to improve their running game? No. Tracy is still probably their number one back, and Singletary is there to back him up. Same two guys. And Tracy's decent. He did okay. Will he improve more in this year? Remains to be seen. But it's not just the running game that needs to improve on offense. Did they do anything to give Malik Neighbors a little relief and not everyone thinking the ball's going to him on every pass play? No. They have their receiver core back. Starters is going to be Neighbors, probably Wandale Robinson, and they brought back Slayton. So there's nobody new there. So I'm a little worried about that. There's going to be too many targets to Malik Neighbors, and the defense is going to figure that out. Their offensive line, what did they do to improve that? Not much. That's been their problem for so long. They have had such tough luck with their offensive line. And with Andrew Thomas in there, they played reasonably well last year. I think they were ranked 12th until he got hurt. And then they fell apart. They dropped down to dead last with him out there. Yeah. Are they going to have to count on him to be in there every game to keep their O-line intact and to be consistent? If they're relying on that one guy, I think they're in trouble. I personally think on defense, they got to generate more consistent pass rush, and they've named their starters. And to my surprise, Abdul Carter is not going to be a starter. He was their number one pick, right? It's going to be Burns, Okereke, and McFadden, and Thibodeau. Carter is going to be coming off the bench, I guess. I'm a little surprised to see that. So, on defense, they got to get more pass rush. That's what Abdul Carter is supposed to be his specialty. So I'm a little surprised that he didn't get in there. They've got to improve their turnover differential, right? They don't get enough turnovers on defense. They need to be more creative with the defensive scheme. The new defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, he needs to develop a more creative scheme, and they got to stay healthy. I mean, Andrew Thomas has got to stay healthy. They've got to keep the rest of those guys healthy because they had a lot of injuries last year. And as you've told me several times, they got the most difficult schedule in the league. So I personally think this is Daboll's last year. I don't think he'll survive. I think Shane will be gone as well. And I think if they're 1-5 after 6 games, you're going to see Jackson Dart.
Well, speaking about that, I want to go quickly through their schedule just so you can get an idea. The first 4 games, at Commanders, at Cowboys, home against the Chiefs, home against the Chargers. Then the only game they're favored in, the New Orleans Saints in Week 5. Then it goes home against the Eagles, at Broncos, at Eagles, home against the 49ers, at Bears, home against the Packers, at Lions, at Patriots. Then they have the latest bye, Week 14. Then home against the Commanders, home against the Vikings, at the Raiders, I believe, and then wrapping it up against the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I think they will be 1-5 after 6 games, don't you? I mean, best case, that New Orleans is the only team they probably will beat in those games, and so that means I think Russell Wilson will be headed to the bench. The fans will demand it. They're going to demand it.
That's what they're thinking.
At least they could be watching somebody that might be their future out there instead of a journeyman.
Well, I've been on this for now probably 2 years, over 2 years at this point. And I can't say that I've been wrong yet. And I really hate to say that because that makes me seem, like that guy. But show me where Russ is this Hall of Famer. I'm still waiting to see Russ put himself in the category of we know they're a Hall of Famer category. Because if you take a look at his career objectively, because I've had this conversation with some people, he's had maybe 2 seasons where he himself has done very, very well. Not necessarily the team, because the team, I think, they won 10 straight years of like 10 wins, something like that, along the lines of that. But Russell Wilson himself, I believe, has only had 2 years. I don't have the stat in front of me. I used to a long time ago. I believe he's had 2 years where he's been a top 10 passer in the NFL. This guy is a double-digit year veteran in the league, and he's only been a top 10 passer twice. And if you take a look at where his success has come from, it's not been the let Russ cook era. It's been the let Russ hand it off to Marshawn Lynch and Legion of Boom era. Because as soon as let Russ cook, the kitchen was lit on fire. Because then look at what the Seahawks became. No running game, no defense, and Pete Carroll eventually got booted upstairs, and now he's currently the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And then you go over to the Broncos, and yikes. And now Russ, this is now his 3rd straight year of leading the league in checkdown percentage. And in fact, he's the only quarterback in 3 straight years to be double-digit percentage in checkdown percentage. Russ is a dink and dunker. I call Danny Dimes Danny Dink and Dunk. Well, Russell Wilson dinks and dunks more than him. So, yeah, this is a situation, and I'll admit, yeah, by the way, that 40-yard bomb, it was an 80-yard bomb in the game against the Jets was a very, very beautiful pass. He looked good. But something that everybody knows, because we saw C.J. Stroud look like a deer in headlights his first preseason game against the New England Patriots. He looked terrible. You can't trust the preseason. You simply can't. So when Russ is bombing it out against backups in the preseason, it's like, okay, he looks good. Just like how Caleb Williams in the first drive this past weekend looked really good. Drove the ball right down the field. It's like, okay, I want to see it in the regular season. Just like how Brian Daboll, I would be, in awe if my rookie quarterback, who had a lot of questions about how he's going to perform in the NFL with a system that doesn't develop, great decision-making passers, he comes in and puts up a pretty decent performance in the preseason. He's 26 of 35 for 291 yards and 3 total touchdowns so far. That's pretty good. That's really good, especially with the scrutiny of the Giants trading back into the first round to go get him. He's performed very well, and Brian Daboll has not moved an inch on his stance about keeping Russ the starter. So I think at some point, we may see him. Because like we saw last year, and like we've seen when he was with the Denver Broncos, Russ hits a wall. Those last 5 or 6 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers averaged 14 points of offense per game. That's very bad. And the defense wasn't much better because they averaged 30 at that point, I believe. So the Giants, they have the toughest schedule with a quarterback that I don't love that needs an efficient running game, and their running back group is currently ranked 25th in the league. Offensive line's 29th, and their quarterback situation's 27th.
Well, Brian Daboll has to say that Russ is the starter, because if Russ falls apart and they're 1-5 at the end of the first 6 games, and everyone's clamoring for Jackson Dart, and he winds up in there, that's the end of Brian Daboll, right? Because they're going to wind up. Maybe 3-14. 3-14 or something like that. That's what they got last year, 3-14, and that'll be the end of him. So he's got to hope that Russ can recapture whatever he had when he was handing off to Marshawn Lynch, because if he turns into a dink and dunker, he's done.
Unfortunately, Tyrone Tracy
is done.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I don't think Tyrone Tracy is in the same category as Marshawn Lynch.
Not at all. And neither is Singletary.
Absolutely.
And the offensive line is not what the Seahawks had either. So I think it's going to be a very tough year for the Giants. I'm sorry, that they're going to be, I think, right at the bottom again. And that will be the end of this leadership team. They'll be gone, and we'll see who they pick. Sorry to be so negative at the very beginning of the year when nothing's happened.
We got to be honest.
But we have to be honest, I think many people feel it as well. It's a shame that they drew the toughest schedule in the league. I mean, come on.
Just what happens.
How does that happen to a team that only won 3 games last year? Usually you get a little bit of a break. I don't know how that happens, but they got to be worried. They have to be very worried. And I think that the only thing that can save their seats in the stadium for people to show up and watch the team is to see the young guy out there, see what he's got and whether he can be their future.
Unfortunately, may not see that for a little while, unless Russ is absolutely terrible, which
I think they're 1-5 after 6, and I think that means bye-bye Rush.
All right, let's get into our next topic here. Let's wrap up today's show with this topic, which is, so as the NFL season approaches, there's a lot of headlines, a lot of storylines to go through, and if you take a look at some of the over-under lines, the Eagles, Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs are all over under 11.5 wins for the season. The Eagles, as we know, just won the Super Bowl. The Chiefs just went 15-2, I believe, in the regular season. They went to the Super Bowl, lost. The Eagles got absolutely decimated by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Ravens and the Bills both met in the playoffs with Mark Andrews dropping and passed right by the goal line. Ravens fans still can't live it down. They hate Mark Andrews for that game because he was abysmal in that game. A lot of top-tier teams. But here's the question, though. Let's try to find the middle of the pack, the good teams, or the should-be good teams, or the should-be great teams, and figure out what teams have the most pressure. You have an interesting way of approaching this, so I actually want to start with you on this one.
Oh, thank you.
Who do you think? Let's put these teams in a pressure cooker and figure out what team or teams have the most pressure going into the 2025-26 NFL season.
Okay, well, every team has pressure to win, that's for sure. Those who continually underperform, and don't live up to the wins that are necessary to make them competitive, they wind up turning over their coaches, turning over their front office, trading their players. It's a revolving door. I see three types of pressure that's out there for these teams. Winning, of course, is one. But to me, the three types of pressure are the teams that are expected to win and compete for the Super Bowl. Must win now. That's the number one pressure. The second type of pressure is organizational pressure. The teams that have a front office that has the performance on the field has been poor for a number of years, and they got to do something or they're all going to get fired. And then the third pressure is the pressure on the coaches, and which coach has really got to step up or he knows he's going to lose his job. So I'll go with my first type of pressure here. The teams that are expected to be at the top of the league and compete for the Super Bowl. I have 5 teams that I've mentioned here: the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Lions. To me, the Eagles, they're under pressure, but not the kind of pressure as some of these other teams. They won the Super Bowl last year, right? So they've got a new offensive coordinator this year. They lost their OC to be the head coach down in New Orleans. So that's a wild card out there for them. But they've lost their coordinators in the past, and they managed to be competitive. So, they won it in 25. I think they're going to be very competitive this year. If they don't make it to the Super Bowl and they don't win it, I don't think that means a coach loses his job. The Chiefs, very similar. They've appeared in 5 of the last Super Bowls. So there's a good chance they may get there again. Andy Reid is a great coaching staff. Mahomes had kind of an off year for him last year, and they still made the Super Bowl. If he returns to his elite play that he's had in some of the prior years, then you could say they'd be a shoo-in. But I don't think Andy Reid loses his job either, or any of the front office people lose their job if they go deep into the playoffs and don't make it to the Super Bowl. The Ravens, I see them as one that's where the real pressure is, right? They haven't won multiple playoff games since 2012.
The Joe Flacco era.
They look great in the regular season. They have stretches where they're unbeatable. They look unstoppable. They have Lamar Jackson, one of the elite players in the NFL, won the MVP a couple of times now. Some argued that he should have gotten it last year as well. They got Derrick Henry, who looks like he's never going to run out of gas. He was threatening to have the most yards of any running back in history there near the end of the season. So they've got the talent, and they've shown it. They have a decent defense, but they haven't been able to get over the hump. Lamar Jackson doesn't play that well in the playoffs. He played well in the first playoff win last year, but then he didn't play that well against the Chiefs, and he's had that problem. Will he get over the hump? I put them as having the equal pressure to this next team, the Bills. They're annually a strong team, but they haven't been able to beat the Chiefs, right? 3 times they haven't been able to beat the Chiefs. And this is the year they got to do it, because if they don't, I think that McDermott's job is in trouble, and we'll talk about that when we get to coach pressure here in a second. The Lions, I think they have one of the best rosters, but they lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators, and I think that's going to be a real challenge for them. We'll have to see what happens with them. So to me, in pressure category number one, it's the Ravens and Bills. They got to get over the hump. If they don't, I doubt that Harbaugh would be fired. But I do think that McDermott, there would be a risk that he would be fired. Pressure number two, this is on the ownership and the front office due to poor performance in the past. This is an easy one. The Bears are at the top of the list, right? They've expectations for them last year. Oh, they could be a playoff team. I said 4 wins.
Historically, you said 5 wins.
Yeah,
5 and 12.
I got trashed for that. Okay,
Yeah,
I was right.
Yeah, you were.
Okay,
Dead on accurate.
and now they've gone out and got a lot of new players. They're going to protect Caleb Williams. He's not going to get sacked a record 69 or 70 times this year. But will they be able to do it? Will they be able to be competitive? If they're not, I said the front office is gone. Okay. And then I have 2 that are tied for number 2, the Giants and the Jets, right?
Both New York teams.
Both New York teams have been disasters for quite a number of years here now. With the Giants, that 1 year where they made the playoffs. But the Jets, they've been pathetic. But I don't think that Aaron Glenn is going to lose this is his first year with them. So
right.
They have an argument. But I think that the pressure on the ownership and the front office people, it's going to be high for them. And I've already said the Giants, it's not going to happen. The front office is going to be gone. The Jets could happen as well. The third team I have is the Panthers. They've been poor, for quite a number of years here. They have, their quarterback showed some spark there the second half of the year last year. Maybe they'll be better. They need to be. The Browns, pathetic. He said the Browns front office, one of the worst in the NFL. They'll clean house again if they're horrible this year. The Raiders, I think they made a wise choice picking up Pete Carroll. I would have rather seen them get Bill Belichick, and Belichick was not happy they didn't get it. But I think that there's some pressure there on the organization. They brought in Pete Carroll. They're betting on him. I think, they need to win more than 4 games in 2025. And the Titans, right? They're pitiful. And will they be able to perform better? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And then my final category is pressure on coaches, okay? And this one's easy. You can guess where I'm going. Brian Daboll, 3-14 record last year. If he doesn't improve on that, it's going to be very hard. We're already picking him not to maybe not even beat his record of last year.
True.
He'll be gone. The Bills, 13-4 record. If they lose to the Chiefs in the playoffs this year, McDermott could be a casualty. Steelers, 10-7, always make the playoffs, always lose in the playoffs. First round, 6 times in a row. Mike Tomlin, you got to win at least 2 playoff games, or maybe you're gone.
2 playoff games
this year.
AFC Championship, you saying? To win 2?
Well, if it might be a wild card team, right? And then he win 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I'd say he's got to do that.
Yeah,
it may not. It might not happen. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers
may
is,
even
right?
make the playoffs.
Then the Bengals, Zach Taylor, 9-8 last year. You got to come out. You got to come out better in the first 4 games of the year. They're horrible. They lost to the Patriots last year in the first game.
Brissett.
Yeah, and I think they've recognized that because you saw Joe Burrow out there in the first. He plays in the preseason. So, and they gave the contracts to Chase and T. Higgins. They've got to do something with Trey Hendrickson, though. They've got to figure that out. Or I think Zach Taylor, it could be a casualty. The Browns, 3-14 with Stefanski. Now he's got every quarterback, and he got half the league's quarterbacks on his team. I'm hoping that Flacco will be replaced by Shedeur Sanders at some point, and maybe that will help save his job. We'll see. The Dolphins, 8-9 with McDaniel. Who's the backup quarterback for the Dolphins this year?
I think Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Or it might be rookie quarterback Quinn Ewers, but I do think
so
it's Zach
they
Wilson.
blew it. That's the Tua when he's hurt. They stink. They're screwed. Yeah. So they needed to get a good backup quarterback. You got to pray that Tua doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Because if he does, then McDaniel's going to be at risk. The Raiders, they're 4-13. If they don't improve over that, even though Pete Carroll, I don't think he'll be at risk, but he's old. They could say, you know what, he's over the hill. We're going to have to replace him. The Panthers, 5-12 last year. If they don't do better than that, I think Canales will be gone. And then my last one, and this is probably a stretch, the 49ers. They're 6-11 last year. Will Shanahan be at risk if they have 6-11 or worse this year? Could be, because Brock Purdy got the big contract. They're counting on him.
He did.
That's my analysis, Nate.
There's a lot I agree with you on.
Oh, thank you.
But here's the one thing. I can't agree with you on the Bills because I shut them out 2 years ago. I said the Super Bowl window under Sean McDermott was shut because they cannot beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Whether it be bad play calling late, a missed field goal, a bad penalty, they can't get over the hump. Even when they have an MVP in Josh Allen, they can't figure it out. And we could talk about the spotting of the ball on third down. We could talk about everything. Josh Allen had several opportunities to make the plays when that mattered, and he didn't. We could talk about the position of the ball all the time, and that's what anybody talked about. For those 7 days, actually for those 14 days in between when that game took place and then when Super Bowl Sunday came around when the Chiefs faced the Eagles. I'm not going to do the categories necessarily, but what I will say is overall, I think the number one pressure cooker team, I'm close to saying the Ravens because Lamar Jackson potentially should be a 3-time MVP quarterback. He just had a tremendous season with like over 5,000 yards of total offense, which is utterly insane. I'm going to go, though, with the Cincinnati Bengals because how long of a leash are we going to keep Zach Taylor on? Because, yeah, he made the Super Bowl. That's great. He made the Super Bowl, but since then, the team seems so unprepared early in the season. The defense can never get going. The offensive scheme has no motion, no play action, no anything. The running game has never really improved. The offensive line is an absolute mess. Where's the growth? And that does fall a little bit on Zach Taylor, but that also falls a lot on Mike Brown and this front office. Because the front office, like Sportico said in their estimation of what franchises are worth, they're the least valuable franchise in the National Football League. And if you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson and these big-name market players, how can you possibly have the lowest, worthy franchise in the NFL? You can't have it. You simply can't have it. So I think right now, in the pressure cooker, I would throw the Bengals in at the number one spot. I'm going to put in the Jaguars, though. Because you have Trevor Lawrence, who is making $55 million per year, who has one winning season. And he's on his, fourth head coach? Third head coach? At some point, what are we going to say? First of all, he's not worth $55 million. He looked terrible when he did play last year. He only had one winning season since he came into the NFL. At some point, he's got to earn his money. Liam Cohen, this quarterback genius. Well, I want to see it. Show me Trevor Lawrence of like 2-3 years ago when he put up the 4,000-yard season and led him to the playoffs, and he won a playoff game and came back from down like 24-0 against the Chargers in the wild card. Show me that one. Show me when he was 2 drives away from beating the Chiefs in the playoffs. Show me that Trevor Lawrence, because if we get what we had the past couple years, it's ugly. Very, very ugly. The last 2 seasons, he has a 10-16 record, a 63.9% completion percentage, 32 touchdowns, 21 picks, and 87.4 passer rating. It's the worst division in football, and they can't get a winning season down. He has won in his career. Give me a break. Mac Jones looked great throwing it to Brian Thomas. Trevor Lawrence didn't look too hot. And in that game where he got hurt, he was 4-10, and Mac Jones nearly led the Jaguars back to beat the Texans. Think about that for a second. Mac Jones, the guy in his own draft class who they picked up, nearly led the Jaguars to beat the Texans after Trevor Lawrence started the game off so poorly and then eventually got hurt. So I think those 2 teams I'm focusing on, I'll throw the Ravens there. I would put the Bills in there, but in my mind, I already shut them off. Under Sean McDermott, I hate to say it, Bills fans, you can keep praying that you're close. We could bring up your regular season record against the Chiefs, and it's great. But at some point in the playoffs, your head coach has to come up big with the good game plan and with the smart decisions, and he hasn't so far. Yes, you came up big with a lucky drop by Mark Andrews, and you played great in the first half, capitalizing on turnovers, and you had an MVP quarterback. But at some point, Sean McDermott is holding you back. And until the Bills front office sees it and lets him go, which you really can't because of the fact that he's been in the playoffs damn near every single season since Josh Allen got there. I think he's been in every single playoff since Josh Allen was drafted.
Yeah, well, I
you got to let him go at some point. I know it sucks,
last year he coached a team that outperformed what was expected.
I would agree with that.
Right?
No great wide receiver
but
core.
it's the playoffs. That's what to get to the Super Bowl. So far, he's shown he doesn't have the stuff to get him there. He's made mistakes, game decisions that were poor. We go back to the Chiefs game where he threw the ball to the sidelines, and he let the Chiefs march right down there with 15, 17 seconds left in the game. They got a field goal to tie it.
That was coaching. Seconds.
That was coaching.
Absolutely.
That was coaching.
They had 3 timeouts.
So he hasn't stepped up the way he needs to in the playoffs with the teams that he's had. So this year is it. I agree. You shut him off. He should have been gone 2 years ago. Well, I'm not saying he should have been gone. I just tuned them out because I saw them consistently fail in the playoffs. But how about who do you think and the ownership?
I'm also not putting on the Cowboys. I know people are like, what about the Cowboys, America's team? Why do we have expectations for a team that owner sabotaged its own team, is currently in a silent war with his best defensive player he's had in years, and won't pay him what he requires? He keeps every contract to the 11th hour.
Rookie head coach in Schottenheimer. He won't fire him after 1 year.
I'm not putting the Cowboys in because we shouldn't have expectations, because when have they deserved expectations?
But how about the general managers and the front office people? Don't you think the Bears are the number one? They should be the ones that be scared the most.
No, because
if they have a terrible season, they're gone. They're gonna have to be gone.
No, they're not, because I think Ryan Poles just got an extension. Caleb Williams is a year 2 quarterback. Brian Johnson, year 1 head coach. I think those would be a massive.
No, Brian Johnson, I don't think is at risk.
Ben Johnson, excuse me.
Ben Johnson. But I do think that Pole.
He's got an extension.
What if they're 4 and 13 again? 4 and 13.
Chicago will be loud, and I believe they're even moving stadiums, so they're getting the hell out.
I do think they'll be better than
Arlington
that,
Heights,
actually.
I believe.
And how about coach? Don't you think Daboll is on number one?
No, but again,
come on, he's going to be fired if they have a terrible season. He's gone.
Again, isn't
that the number one thing? You don't want to be fired.
Well, I think the pressure cooker is expectations versus results. What are we expecting from the Giants with the hardest schedule, with Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart or hell, Jameis Winston at starting quarterback? Yeah, I think you made a very good decision drafting Abdul Carter, who, he got pushed around on one play, but has looked dominant.
He's not even the starting lineup.
That's weird. But I mean, when you have Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and Bobby Okereke, I mean, I'll say that Abdul Carter's better than Brian Okereke or Bobby Okereke. Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird.
That is weird. He's been very dominant thus far. So that's very, very strange.
Has he played poorly in the preseason?
No,
I don't know.
No. He's been extremely dominant.
Okay.
The Browns, again, it's expectations versus results. You just had one of the worst records in football. Your quarterback is Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders or Kenny Pickett. What are we doing? Or Deshaun Watson. Who the hell? He's still on the roster. Mm-hmm. So they have 5 quarterbacks on the draft right now. They may even have 6. But
I got one I wanted to try. Wanted to step back a little bit. And just something I mentioned during the draft last year.
Sure.
As they kept going by, Shedeur Sanders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th round before he got picked.
Yeah.
Why didn't the Jets pick Shedeur Sanders?
Because we talked about it. They had Justin Fields.
Justin Fields has played terrible in the preseason so far.
I don't disagree with that take, actually.
Right?
I don't think he's played well.
And their backup quarterback is?
Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor, who always gets hurt.
He is hurt.
He's hurt.
he is
okay. Why didn't they pick Shedeur Sanders? He's a big name, and it's a big market. Right? He's a big name, and it's a big market. The fans would, even if the Jets play crap, which the good chance they will. They would be. He could be thinking about him for the future, and he might do well. So I don't know why they didn't take him. That was a mistake.
I don't disagree with that. I may have taken him earlier than 5th because the Jets had a couple opportunities.
Yeah, so who did they get? Look at their first 5 picks. Is there anybody there that's going to be a world beater?
I'm not going to disagree with the Mason Taylor tight end draft pick. I don't disagree with that because your top guy would have been Jeremy Rucker.
Okay, that's
I don't love that. Outside of that, I mean, again, I can't argue. I can't
In their
argue with
first
their later
5
round.
picks, 2 years from now, you look at their first 5 picks this year, maybe one of them will be on the team, right?
Maybe.
And they could have had Shedeur
Here.
Sanders.
Their draft picks were Armand Membo. That was the first round pick, the 7th overall pick. I agree with that because they lost Morgan Moses. Round 2 pick 42, Mason Taylor, tight end. I agree with that. They got a cornerback in round 3. They got a wide receiver.
Who was their quarterback in round 3?
It's a name that I probably can't pronounce. Florida State cornerback Azaria Thomas. I screwed up that first name. Cornerback, yeah. Round 4, they had 2 picks. Wide receiver and a safety, Malachi Moore, who I liked a lot. 4th round pick, I think that's a steal. And then in the 5th round, linebacker and defensive end.
You could have had Shedeur Sanders, one of those picks. You wouldn't have been sacrificing much at all, particularly when you get to the 5th round. Come on.
Well, I think the 5th wasn't Shedeur pick 144, if I'm not mistaken.
It was in the 5th round.
Yeah, but the Jets had picks 162
all right,
and 176.
take him in the 4th round then.
Maybe.
Come on, 4th round.
I might have. It's weird to say the least that the Jets, who had just Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, I like. Who ran the Giants offense.
He's always hurt.
He is always hurt. Correct.
He's hurt right now.
Right. What's interesting is that the Saints were also they took Tyler Shuck. Was a 2nd round pick if I'm not mistaken? It was early in the draft.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore has not announced the starting quarterback yet. Hasn't announced it. Still going strong, this quarterback battle. It's confusing. I don't know. Quarterback situation's crazy. We'll stay on top of it as always. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, the comeback episode of the Harvey Hour, we'll be back. It's over. We'll be back next Tuesday. We got some things. We have to do standings predictions. We'll do AFC, NFC as time goes on. It's gonna be a fun season of NFL football as always.
Love football.
Trying to
great to be back.
Absolutely.
Great to have you back. And we look forward to future shows here.
Absolutely. All right, for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's been Stephen Harvey. We have been your hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.